Okay, so here we are. I'm attempting to refight the Battle of Gaugamela, which was an incredibly famous battle, which had Alexander the Great at its head, and he was fighting against a much larger army of Darius, who was the king of the Persian Empire, also Parthia as well. So this is the battle map that we've got. It's essentially a very flat, open plain with no kind of tactical advantage for either side. I've tried to keep it as historically accurate as possible. So as you'll see in a minute, when the Parthian army appears, there'll be an awful lot of very low-grade troops. There'll be a few good troops simulating the Parthian immortals. There'll be some cavalry, some archers, and of course chariots. No elephants though in this particular battle. Let's take a quick look at the Macedonian army. So at the front we have several units of foot companions, essentially pikemen. They're going to form the main battle line of the Macedonian army. On the left we have a unit of royal peltasts and a unit of hoplites, supported by 3 more units of hoplites. As you can see from the unit panels, all the units are fairly well upgraded. Behind these we have some skirmish units, which are peltasts and a unit of slingers, and then on the Macedon right we have 3 units of companion cavalry, all very heavily upgraded, and of course we have Alexander himself in the front of this particular group of companion cavalry, and that has max upgrades. I'm playing the computer on hard difficulty because this is a battle that Macedon probably shouldn't win, and as you can see down here the balance of power is slightly in favour of the Parthians. So we'll get this battle underway in a second and see what happens. I'll just give you a quick run through of what I'm going to try and do, because after all the battle will probably not go as I planned. I'm going to try and keep it as historically accurate as possible. What happened in the real Battle of Gaugamela? Alexander's pikemen moved forwards and engaged the front line of the Parthian army in the middle, in a straight out fighting, right in the middle, and the kind of clever bits there. His left flank too engaged straight on, however his cavalry move off to the right, trying to pull some of the Parthians with them, and then they charge back in towards the centre and engaged the middle part of the Parthian army, which crumbled. In the real battle, the cavalry were accompanied by some units of skirmishers. However, in this particular battle I'm going to be keeping the skirmishers with the main force of pikemen. I've got no idea how the computer's going to play. I very much doubt it's going to play as Darius did, which was coincidentally just literally to stand there and wait for Alexander to come and attack him. Essentially, he stood there and sent out. First, he sent out his skirmishers, then he sent out his chariots, and finally he sent out his cavalry. And every single time Alexander thwarted them and eventually broke the army. Again, in the real battle, both Darius and Alexander survive. Alexander survives with wounds but nothing fatal, and Darius manages to flee without any wounds whatsoever. So without any further ado, let's see how we go, and wish me all the best of luck. So the army's not quite visible. There it is, and as you can see, we're getting lag already. As you can see, it's a much bigger army than mine. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to move up these pikes, just to close down the battle lines and make it a little bit closer. Going to try and draw out some of the chariots, perhaps. I'm going to move my cavalry further over to the right, just a little bit. It looks like the computer is playing fairly defensively here. It looks like they're going to try and do what Darius did and essentially leave me alone until I come a little bit too close. In this particular battle, I've simulated Darius being on horseback. However, in the real battle he will have been pulled on chariot, or he will have just been way out the back on some kind of horse. He was not a fighting general. With regards to the commander traits and abilities, Alexander is obviously going for very aggressive ones, and Darius going for defensive ones. I'll just pause the battle here so that we can take a quick look at the Parthian army. I know this is actually Pontus, however Parthia do not get access to chariots in this game, and so a little bit of proxying it has to be used here. So in the front we've got a lot of units of archers, eastern archers all the way along. In the centre we have 3 units of scythe chariots with some more archers on the right as well. Then essentially the main battle line, it's 15 units of eastern spearmen, no upgrades whatsoever. So these guys are of course incredibly numerous, but they will not be fighting for very long. However, it's a massive numerical advantage. In the real battle, it's apparently told that Darius' army numbered 250,000 men or more and stretched unbroken for 2.5 miles, which is quite incredible considering that throughout this battle Alexander only has 40,000 men at his disposal. So here is the Parthian Immortals. I've used Pontic Swordsmen here, max upgrades to give them a fighting chance. This is going to be a hard set of units to bring down, and I'm going to need to be able to I'm going to need to hit them with the cavalry and combined arms to do that. Now, usually when I would play battles, you would want to be anchoring this right-hand flank with a unit of hoplites, but like I say, I'm trying to keep it as historically accurate as possible. Also at the back we have a few units of citizen cavalry, and although these are Greek, they are the worst cavalry available to Pontus, and so they will do for this particular battle. In general I think I've got it fairly accurate, and again I shall carry on and we'll see how we do. So as you can see, clearly massively outnumbered. It should make for quite an interesting engagement. So we're carrying on now, and again I'm just going to be moving my pikes forward a little bit. I want to keep them moving slowly so that if they do decide to charge out at me, then I can react much faster. The reason why in this battle I've got so many hoplite units on my left hand flank is that in the real battle of Gaugamela, that's what Alexander did. This left-hand flank was commanded by a man called Parmenion, Alexander's right-hand man, and Parmenion, this left-hand side was the most hard-fought part of the battle, and in the end Alexander's cavalry had to, they started on Darius's right-hand flank and they moved all the way around, and they had to come back and help Parmenion, and this is where Alexander sustained most of his battle wounds. So as we can see, the infantry is moving forward, still nothing from the Parthian side. I think that if anything, the chariots are going to be the first thing that are going to move out. When I engage, I think I'm going to have to ignore the phalanx because I'm going to be taking so much damage as I go through the archers that it could hurt quite a bit, but we'll see how that goes in a minute. I'm just going to continue to move my guys forward, again only slowly. I don't want to get them into a position where I'm at a serious disadvantage. So just a general advance here and keeping the lines nice and straight where possible. And now I'm going to try and wheel even further right with the cavalry here because in the real battle, a hole opened up just to the right of centre as we look at it here, and that's where the Macedonian cavalry hit. But clearly here the computer has decided that it needs to keep its lines intact, which is perfectly sound reasoning. So I may have to try and hit this more centrally and hope that the citizen cavalry aren't too responsive. I may have to do a few hit and run tactics with these guys. In fact, I might get them around a little bit more. I'm going to try and hit roughly where these scythe chariots are. I'm going to try and bog them down between my pikes and their eastern infantry, because then there'll be no retreat and I can just cut them down onto the pikes. That's the plan. And then I'm going to try and chew up this right hand side and then move along this left hand side, because there's very few decent troops on this left hand flank as we look at it, which is why we're moving slowly towards the right hand side of their army. So again, I'll be moving forwards and slightly to the right, hence why the left hand flank of my army is so heavy and the right hand flank less so. Hopefully the horses should be able to provide the flanking support that the pikemen need. I'm surprised that the computer's allowing me to get this close, to be honest. I'll move the cavalry a little bit further forward, and there they are. Right, the entire army has decided it's time to move, and all it's doing is it's turning to face my cavalry. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my missile units off skirmisher mode, so that if the chariots do come out, I do have a chance to fire at them before they get in, before I start running away from them. Okay, so now we have a chance to do a tactic from a completely different battle in history. I'm going to move this unit up and I'm going to refuse a flank. And I'm going to order a general advance of my pikes with skirmishers coming in behind. Horses are going to stay roughly where they are, move slightly forwards, and this set of units in here are going to hopefully try and plug the gap if they decide to charge, which they're clearly not doing. I'm going to have to be fairly aggressive here. So I think it's time to engage. It looks like we're going to be trying to hit where their chariots are. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to move the chariot. I'm going to move the... Okay, here they come, here they come, here they come. The chariots are there. Everybody's there. I'm ready to take the charge. It better be. And I just pop steady there so that... Yeah, there we go. I managed to take the charge, and then we're just going to reinforce with this unit here. They've only charged with a single unit. The missile units are a little bit too far forward, so we're just going to keep them back. And to be honest, we can afford to take this kind of attacking at the moment. There's the Peltasts being hurt a little bit, so what we'll do is we'll go in and engage these guys now. Looks like we've driven off the first units of chariots, and I'm going to order a general advance now across the whole of my line to try and force the issue a bit more. These guys are just going to be walking up, and then these guys are going to be doing a general advance. I'm going to be keeping my missile units fairly close behind, with the cavalry slowly moving up towards these archers. All my units are fairly well upgraded, and theirs aren't, so I should be able to take it. And that's another charge from the chariots there, hitting the hoplites fairly hard. Okay, so it looks like we've got a fairly big fight here. The cavalry are now in a perfect position to try and hit this flank behind where the chariots are. This could be quite a horrible charge. Their scythe chariots are routing and fleeing there, and it's time to see what the Macedonian cavalry can do. Let's get that ability going off. It looks like we're doing okay on the right hand flank, and here's the charge, and that hurts. That looks like it's really hurt, and one unit is already routing. I'm going to be running away with them because I don't want them to get caught in the middle of that brawl, despite my guys being so good. However, they're not being very responsive. Hopefully Alexander can make it out of there alive. The pikemen are still coming in. However, they are taking fairly heavy casualties, and I am just going to charge these guys in now. They should be good enough. The missile units should be firing. It looks like they are, which is all good. More of my units are fighting in here, and looks like we're still doing very well over on this left-hand flank. It looks like it's going fairly to history at the moment. I'm fairly pleased with how it's going. I'm just going to move these pikemen in here to try and get around the back of all these Pontic units here. A lot of Eastern Spearmen, a lot of my guys not dying. However, my cavalry are still kind of stuck in that combat there. A lot of their guys moving out. My cavalry is still fighting. However, that is the Pontic swordsmen. We don't really want to be fighting. However, one unit is routing. We're just going to bring these units round to try and help on this left-hand flank, because my units are, I think, starting to just lose their numbers a little bit. We've got a unit of hoplites here which we can help send in, and it looks like a lot more of the Pontic units are routing. We'll just use the whip off on them. Now we've got another charge available with my cavalry, and we're going to use that hopefully to great advantage. I'm just trying to build up my forces back here again, so that I can make another concerted effort on this left-hand flank, which seems to be where most of their units are. I'm a little bit concerned about this unit of citizen cavalry. However, they are about to charge onto a unit of foot companions, and that's going to hurt. So here come the rest of my cavalry. I can see a unit of Eastern Spearmen. I'm going to try and pick them off. Going to move up my missile units a little bit, just so that they can give a little bit more of a help. It looks like we're doing quite well. Just going to reform up my guys again, make a nice solid block. Yep, that unit's routing nicely. Still got plenty of cavalry left, so we can afford to use them fairly aggressively. Reforming the line, always good to do. I'll hold the trample ability just for the moment, because after all we are going to be needing it to hit over here somewhere. So I can see Darius here. I'm going to just try and go for him, maybe hit through the citizen cavalry first. Looks like we're still doing fairly well over here. The peltasts and hoplites are holding pretty well. Looks like Darius is actually going to try and come in and fight us, so I'm going to try and break through. Did get the trample off, and I'm going to move in these guys just to give me a little bit of a hand. These guys are going to come up around to the right of the cavalry just to support the flank. I'm going to get these two units I'm going to get my missile units on these guys just to make sure I can wipe them out. Now, this hole over here I'm definitely going to be plugging. Looks like we're still winning over on this flank. The peltasts are fighting really well. However, I do want these guys to move in and head towards the main part of their lines. I don't want my cavalry to get bogged down, which it looks like they are a little bit. And we can still keep moving forward with these guys so they can go into the fight. That wasn't what we wanted to do. So let's go back to the cavalry now. We want to reform them up, see where, well, it looks like the battle is won. Lots and lots of routing Pontic army, and actually my army is still fairly intact. And there is the victory, so I'll just end the battle here. So apparently it was a close victory, and I would say it was a fairly good victory. If we look around, I can still see a lot of my guys here. I still had quite a few spearmen, lots of hoplites left. The left flank really did perform, and of course I've got all my missile units and still a lot of companion cavalry. So let's just let's exit the battles and have a look at this. Went very well. Thank you. So if we just take a look, this was the two armies. You can see an awful lot of Eastern Spearmen. They didn't get many kills between them, and actually most of the Macedonian army fairly intact. I think that's less a close victory, more a crushing victory. But never mind. In real terms, the Parthians probably should have outnumbered me a little bit more. But never mind, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another one of my videos.